kambali, Simba kambali, Simba kambali, Simba ole yo ho, ole yo ho. Ole yo ho, ole yo ho. Simba kambali, Simba kambali, Simba kambali, Simba kambali. Ole yo ho, ole yo ho. Balo bakie, bilo balo bato lengie. Mubuki lokutaye nandokise motomoko. Kusema sema tumechoka Muongo na murozi ni watu wa kuchoma. Ole yo ho, ole yo ho. Simba kambali, Simba kambali. Balo bakie, bilo balo bato lengie. Mubuki lokutaye nandokise motomoko. Kusema tumechoka Muongo na murozi ni watu wa kuchoma. Simba kambali, ole yo ho. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George, but I go by the name Fishmonger Stories. Do I have a great story for you? Yes, I do. But first things first, don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment, and share this story with as many people as possible. That is why we want to transform, entertain, challenge you one story at a time. Share the story, share the story. Word of mouth goes a long way. After this story, I want you to share it with at least 10 people, okay? After this YouTube live, share it with at least 10 people. And go back, we have a playlist. You can click on that and it will show you all Fishmonger Stories, most popular stories that you can share and enjoy anywhere when you're taking a long journey. Click on the playlist, let it play, get some knowledge. Opi-yu-yai-de, Lukama, which means look at me. Open your eyes, look at me. Let me impart some wisdom unto you. Opi-yu-yai-de, Lukama. I have some great stories for you today. I have some riddles for you today. I have some African proverbs for you today. Are you ready for a story? Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to tell a story. I'm going to tell you a story about a passage of rites. Yes, what is a passage of rites? It is when somebody moves from one group to another group. For example, when you are born, when you take your first steps, when you learn to talk, when you get, perhaps maybe in other cultures, when you get circumcised, or when you get your confirmation, your first communion. These are passages of rites. Or for example, in India, when they shave the hair off, called Chudakarana. Yes, that is a passage of rites. What do they do in your culture? You tell me what they do as a passage of rites. From birth, the little steps that you do till you die. These are passages, rites of passage that we all go through in life. I will tell you mine, and you tell me yours. Are you ready for some stories? What do they do in your culture as a passage of rite? When does a young boy become a man? When does a young woman, when does a young girl become a woman? You tell me, what do they do in your culture? I'm going to tell you a story about my culture. What they do when you transition from boy to young adult to an adult. What do they do? Every culture, the Jews, they have the bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. Yes, it's a rite of passage, a transition. What do they do in your culture? You tell me. In some cultures, for example, in my culture, I remember that they used to knock off the bottom teeth. Yes, they would knock off the bottom, either 2 teeth or 4 teeth for the boys and the girls, in order for them to be recognized as adults. My father never had 4 bottom teeth. My mother never had 4 bottom teeth. I have mine because I don't want to do that. Because all these passage of rites, they transition and they change. Yes, we don't do that anymore in my culture. But during my father's generation, yes, they did it. My grandfather never had bottom teeth. In some cultures, they knock off 6 bottom teeth. Yes, and young boys and girls could hardly wait to get to that time when they get circumcised, or when they get their bottom teeth knocked off, or when they go on a scavenger to hunt for a lion. Some of those we don't do anymore because of we have to preserve the lions. So every culture has something they do. Latin America, South and Central America, they have the quinceañera, when that 15-year-old girl is considered. What do they do in your culture? What do they do in North America or Europe or Canada? Is it that sweet 16 birthday party? You tell me, what do they do in your culture that marks that transition? Some aborigines in Australia, they have what is called the walkabout, when 10, 12, 13-year-olds walk into the wilderness and they don't come back for months. When they come back, they are considered men. What do they do in your culture? Some cultures, they have what is called the scarification, where they put scars. They put scars on the face or on the back. Yes, if you can endure that pain, then you are a man. What do they do in your culture? You tell me. Some cultures, they jump over bulls. Yes, they jump over bulls. Yes, to transition from one stage to another. What do they do in your culture? You tell me. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I'm telling the stories of passage of rites. Some cultures, they do a dangerous bungee rope jumping from high levels. Very dangerous bungee rope. Whoop! Dangerous bungee rope jumping, and that they do as a transition from boyhood to adulthood. What do they do in your culture? Is it when you vote? Is it when you have your driver license? Is it when you have your first shave? You tell me, what do they do in your culture? I am going to tell you a story. Among the Maasai people, once upon a time, a young man named Korei Olepunywa woke up very, very early in the morning when everything else was asleep. Korei Olepunywa, he woke up this day with a mission. Before this day, he was a boy. After this day, he would be a man. And so he woke up with a mission. His mission was to go out there and prove that he's a man by going out there alone and either killing something or finding something to bring home and feed the family and prove that Korei Olepunywa is a man, is no longer a boy. And so Korei, he woke up very early in the morning and he tied his dagger around his waist. He went under the granary, the things that he had kept the previous night that he knew he was going to use Oh, he tied his dagger around his belt. He looked under the granary. He saw the feather that he had kept from previous night. He put it under his waistband. He saw the thorn that he had saved from previous night. He put it under his waistband. And Korei Olepunywa, he started to walk. And as he walked, he disappeared from the Manyata or the village. He disappeared all the way into the Olgatuni escarpment. Oh, he went to the side of the hill which he knew so well. Oh, today he was going alone. He had often been on this hill with either his father, his older brother, or his uncles. But today, Korei Olepunywa, he was going alone. Today, he was going to be a man. And so he went on the side of the hill, filled with nothing but flowers. Oh, he was familiar with this hill. He went and he sat quietly between the flowers. He sat quietly. He did not move. He just sat quietly. And he waited for the sun to rise. Oh, as the sun rose, casting all those beautiful warm colors in the sky. Oh, the sun rose and you could see the flowers. They started to open up to the sun. The flowers were opening up to the sun. Oh, and the sweet smell of the flowers permeated Korei Olepunywa's nostril. But Korei Olepunywa, he was not here for that. He was not here for the beauty of the flowers. No. He was not here for the sweet smelling flowers. No, he was here on a mission. He was going to be a man. And so he sat quietly among the flowers and he waited for the bees. And the bees slowly started coming and enjoying the flowers. And Korei, he sat so quietly, the bees probably thought he was a tree stump or a rock. And as the bees moved closer to him, he would try to catch the bees, but he missed. A few times he tried, but lastly, he was able to catch a bee. And as soon as he caught the bee, he turned it inside his hand and held it out like this before the bee could sting him. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what do you think Korei Olepunywa was going to do with this bee? Eat it? No. He took his thorn. Do you think he was going to kill the bee? No. Korei Olepunywa was on a mission. He took the thorn. He pricked his wrist and blood started to trickle down. He took his white feather that he brought with him and he dabbed on the blood. And he took that feather and he stuck it on the back of the bee like that. And it stuck like a glue. And then he let the bee go. And the bee started to fly. And he followed the white feather. When the bee flew, he followed the white feather. So you knew where the bee was. And he ran after the bee because he knew it was just a matter of time. The bee would take him to the beehive. Yes, he was looking for the beehive. And he ran all morning. And midday, he was still running after the bees. He ran, and before long, the bee disappeared into a tree trunk. There was a hole in the trunk, and the bee disappeared inside the tree, the trunk of the tree. And he knew this must be where the beehive is. And he stood there and watched as some bees entered through the hole, and some bees came out. And he said, this is where the beehive is. And so Korei Olepunywa, he did what he had done or what he had been taught so many times. Oh, he was going to collect the bee. But first, you have to make the bees sleepy. Yes. How do you make the bees sleepy? He started a fire. He took 2 sticks and put some grass, and he rubbed the 2 sticks together to make fire. Boop. And there was fire. And then he took some damp leaves and covered with the dry leaves for smoke to form. And there was smoke. And the smoke from the bottom of the tree slowly entered inside the trunk of the tree. And the smoke came and filled inside the tree to make the bees sleepy. Yes, lots of smoke makes the bees sleepy. And the bees, they fell asleep. And as soon as the bees were all sleepy, Correo Lepuño, he took his dagger from his waistband. He pulled it. After he pulled out his dagger, he started to make a hole bigger and bigger on the tree. He made the hole bigger, and he made the hole bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the hole became so big that he could fit his hands through it. Correo Lepuño. Slowly, he pushed his hand inside the tree. And he could feel the honey. He broke part of it and he pulled it out. As he was pulling it out, some of the bees started to crawl up his arms. He took the bee and he put it on the banana leaf that he had brought with him. And he stayed calm, cool and collected. He put his arm inside again. And as he did this over and over again, more bees started to crawl up his arms. And he did it stealthily, calmly. And as he did this, the more he reached for it, the more the bees started crawling. And he kept up with it. Slowly, the bees slowly were crawling up. The bees were crawling up his neck. Some bees tried to crawl inside his ear, but he stayed calm because he had been told, stay calm, stay quiet, don't be afraid. Now the bees were crawling up. One bee tried to go inside his mouth and he closed his mouth. One bee went right into his eyes, but he stayed calm. One bee even tried to go inside his nose. Yes, that was not comfortable at all, but he stayed calm, collecting more honey, slowly reaching for more until he had collected what he thought was all the honey. By the time he was done, Correo Lepuño was covered by bees all over his head, all over his neck, all over his chest. All his body was covered by nothing but bees. And Correo Lepuño, he took his bundle of bees and slowly started to walk away from the beehive. And as he walked away from the beehive, the bees, they got fresh air and slowly they started falling off and flying back to the beehive. The bees, they fell off and they flew back to the beehive. It wasn't long, the last bee flew away and Correo Lepuño was all to himself with his bundle of honey in his arms. Correo Lepuño, he walked and walked until he found a baobab tree and he sat under the baobab tree. He wanted to taste this honey that he had collected. He took a little bit. This was the most delicious honey he had ever tasted. The most delicious honey he had ever tasted as a man. Yes, he had done this and he was going to enjoy. He could eat as much as he wanted to, as long as he took some home to feed the family and prove that he was a man. The bee was the most delicious bee honey that he had ever tasted in his life. He ate. He licked his finger. Correo Lepuño. Most delicious honey Correo Lepuño had ever tasted in his life. He was so full. He was so full. He fell asleep under the tree. Yes! He didn't know for how long he fell asleep. But while he was asleep, guess who came by? Yes. Olgatuni, the lion, Simba. Yes, came. And the lion saw Correio Lepunyo laying there. And the lion was like, I wonder what he's doing here. I'm not hungry right now, but I'm gonna take this meat and keep it by my den, said the lion. And the lion, he looked at Correio and he licked him. He licked him again. I'm not sure if Correio woke up, but Correio had been told, if ever you are cornered by an animal, play dead. Wait for the animal to go away and run. And so Correio, he pretended to be dead by slowing down his breathing and closing his eyes. The lion licked him again. And the lion decided, I am going to take this back to my den so I can eat it later. And the lion, he opened his mouth and took a bite of Correio's neck to drag him. That is the time Correio Lepunyo woke up. He felt the teeth of the lion behind his neck. And Correio Lepunyo, he just played dead. He closed his eyes, slowed down his breathing, and played dead. As the lion dragged him across the grass, across the stones, across the rocks and the thorn bushes, the lion dragged him upon the pebbles, and he allowed himself to be dragged by the lion. And the lion went until the lion got to its den. And right outside the lion's den was an old thorn tree that had been struck by lightning, and it was very crackly and very prickly. And the lion, he was going to hang Correio Lepunyo over the thorn tree and save him for dinner. And so the lion lifted Correio Lepunyo and he swung him over the tree. When he swung him, one of those ragged parts of the thorn tree pricked deep inside Correio Lepunyo's stomach, and he started to bleed. But he just hung in there and pretended to be dead. Closed his eyes, and he was breathing so slowly. This he could do, but one thing he couldn't control was the tears. All of a sudden, tears started running down Correio Lepunyo's eyes, and as tears were running down, the lion saw the tears. The lion was intrigued. He had never seen these tears before, and the lion, he moved closer to Correio Lepunyo's face. He licked the tears. He had never tasted tears before. And then the lion took off, left his food, left his dinner. He would come back later and feast on the dinner that he had left here on the thorn tree. As soon as the animal left, Correio Lepunyo, he lifted himself up and put pressure on his stomach to stop the bleeding. And he broke off a branch and decided to run while flecking the dust so the lion would not track him. He was flecking the dust behind him, the trace of blood, so the lion would. And Correio Lepunyo, he hobbled slowly until he got almost to the village. And when he got to the village, he could see two wise women near the edge of the village. And Correio, he lifted up his hands. When the women saw him, he fell down and he passed out. All the women, they ran. And they picked him up. And they looked at how badly he was. And they said, oh, it looks like this was his first day. He wants to be a man. Let us help him. And so the women, they took Correio Lepuñua and put him inside the hat. And they bandaged him. They dressed him. Kept him safe. Gave him a little sip of water to drink. And they kept him safe in the house. They said, we are not going to tell anybody because we want him to succeed as a man. The following morning, they had some warrior. A Moran was running. A Maasai Moran. A warrior came running. Olayo! Olayo! He came running. A dust of cloud could be seen as he came running back to the village, saying, Simba, Simba, Olgatuni, Olgatuni, Olgatuni. There's a lion. Oleyo, Oleyo. The whole village woke up. And everybody started beating and shouting, Simba, Kambali, Simba, don't get near. Simba, Kambali, Simba, Kambali, Simba, Kambali, Simba, Kambali, Simba, Oleyo, ho, Oleyo, ho, Simba, Kambali, Simba, Kambali, Simba, Kambali, Simba, Kambali. As they were saying this, the lion came closer and closer to the village. All the villagers, they shouted, Oleyo, ho, Oleyo, ho, Simba Kambali, Simba Kambali, Simba Kambali. They played and they sang and they shouted. But the lion came closer and closer to the village. The lion started walking around the village. The people shouted, Oleyo, ho, Oleyo, ho. They tried to all the young men, Oleyo, ho, Simba Kambali, Simba Kambali, Simba Kambali. But the lion did not retreat. The lion started walking around the village, and the people, they played their drums, they played everything, all the pots and the pans, anything they could get their hand on to scare the lion. But the lion did not go away until the chief came and said, everybody, we have to have a meeting right now. The chief said, we have to have a meeting. There is a reason why this lion is here. If anybody knows, please speak up. The chief, he took out his fly whisk and said, this is my fly whisk. Pass it around. If you get the fly whisk, speak the truth. Tell us, do you know anything that we do not know? Tell us the truth. Tell us the truth. There is a reason why the lion is here. And people, oh, they didn't know. They passed the fly whisk. I don't know. They passed the fly whisk. And the fly whisk went round and round and round until it got to the hands of the wise women. The wise women, one of the wise women, she took the fly whisk and said, well, yesterday, Correio Lepuñua came back. It looked like he had escaped from a lion's den. And if I'm not wrong, I think the lion is here looking for his meat. And she gave the fly whisk back to the chief. The chief, he took the fly whisk and said, looks like we already know why the lion is here. Where is Correio Lepuñua? The women said, Correio Lepuñua is in our hat. They said, well, said the chief, you have to do the right thing. Because if you don't do the right thing and send Correio back to the lion is going to eat all of us. We either survive as a people or let Correio be the sacrifice. Correio Lepuñua has to be given back to the lion. The lion is here to claim his meat. The lion is here to claim what belongs to him. Give Correio Lepuñua back to the lion. And the two women knew they had to do what they had to do. And so they went back to the manyatta. They went back to the hut where they had left Korey Olepunywa. They woke him up and say, Korey, Korey, Korey. Korey, Korey, Korey. This is what's happened. The lion is here. The lion is here for his meat. You have to go and meet the lion out and at the edge of the village. And they got Korey up and started to push him towards the edge of the village. And Korey said, no, 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 stop pushing me, stop pushing me. Stop pushing me. Stop pushing me, said Korey. Stop pushing me. And Korey, he got out of the hut himself and he started walking towards the edge of the village. He looked back at the villagers and he looked back. He looked forward to where the lion was. He looked back at the villagers and he looked ahead at where the lion was. And he continued to walk towards the lion. He walked, looked back at the villagers, and he looked forward at the lion. He walked, he walked, he walked until he came to the edge of the village. The lion saw him. He saw the lion. They locked eyes. The lion looked at his meat. Korey looked at the lion. The lion knew that this was not a boy anymore. He was Korey Olepunywa, the man. And the lion slowly retreated back into the wilderness. The lion retreated back, and that's when the lion retreated back and disappeared. And Korey indeed was the man from that day on. He brought the honey. He locked eyes with the lions. The lion retreated back into the wilderness. Korey became a man. End of story. Thank you for enjoying Fishmonger's stories on Passage of Rites. Are you ready for some proverbs? Are you ready for some proverbs? Are you ready for some African proverbs? Proverb number 1, saying number 1. Your character is like pregnancy. It can never be hidden. Your character is like pregnancy. It can never be hidden. And that is very self-explanatory. Pregnancy cannot be hidden. Your character is like pregnancy. It can never be hidden no matter what. It will come out. Proverb number 2. When you educate a man, you educate an individual. When you educate a woman, you educate a generation. When you educate a man, you educate an individual. When you educate a woman, you educate a generation. Proverb number three that I use a lot with my kids. You can use it too, okay? Feel free to use it anytime. No matter how hot your anger is, it can never cook yams. No matter how hot your anger is, it can never cook yams. So please, it's not good to anybody. Keep it to yourself, Swatarwanya. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for enjoying the story on Passage of Rites and enjoying some of my favorite African proverbs and African sayings. Until then, asante sana, kwaheri, bye, thank you, gracias, obrigado, shukran, see you later. Yes. Firmilenge.